installment of Just a Podcast, the podcast that melts in your mouth, not in your hand. My name is Just Bob. As we speak, right now, it is 5:33 a.m. on Wednesday, August 12th, 2020. And I am coming up on 1 year on the Bob Rocks Morning Show. I moved to mornings on August 19th of 2019. And one question that I've received from people that I know and people I don't know is, how do you deal with getting up so early? On an average day, I'll get out of bed at about 3:45, and a quarter of 4, and get to work by about 5 a.m., which gives me about an hour to prepare, to do things like I'm doing right now, so I don't have to deal with it later, because by the time I get off the air at 10 o'clock, the building is buzzing with people, and it's loud, and there's people laughing and laughing and laughing and laughing. I swear, what goes on here must be hilarious, because that's what I hear when I'm at my desk. And maybe people laughing and laughing and laughing. I'm glad they're enjoying themselves. That's fine. But it makes it non-conducive to me, because for whatever reason, I've always found it difficult to concentrate in noisy environments. Some people are good at that. They've got a good, real sharp focus. And my focus is highest when things are quiet. And so I try and get as much as I can done in the morning before I go on the air, when the only people in the building are myself and AJ on the hayride. And most of the time, I'm not even aware that he's here, because he'll come in, go straight into his studio, and I won't hear another thing out of him, at least until it's time for a smoke break. So that's what I'm doing right now. But I wanted to talk about that real quickly, because I have been asked by people, like I said, by people I know, people in my family, people in my friends, and you guys, members of the Bob Rocks audience, how do you do it? And for me, it was a lot easier than I expected. I was having a conversation with Imaginary Bob here in the audience, here in the building yesterday, and I said to her at one point, it was a lot easier than I expected, because I've always been a night person. I was born a night owl. I came by it naturally. It seems to run in my family. When I was 10, 11, 12 years old, I used to, this was right after my family moved to Columbia, Maryland from Philadelphia when I was 9. And for the first couple of years, I would go back to Philadelphia for a week or two during the summer, during summer vacation, and I would stay at my grandmother's house, and I would hang out in the old neighborhood and hang out with my old friends and do the stuff that I used to do, running wild in the streets, stuff like that. My grandmother was a night owl too, and she'd be up until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, go to bed, and I'd sleep a couple hours, because she was always up when I went to bed, and she was always up when I got up. So I just got used to that. I just thought, that's normal. And I would be banging around the neighborhood in the middle of the night sometimes, which, when I was a kid, I guess you could do that. I wouldn't recommend it now, especially not there. But, so I had trouble when I was in school. I had trouble adjusting to waking up early in the morning. I hated it. My parents hated it, because it would basically be left up to them when I was a kid, to make sure that I was up and out on time and stuff like that. I didn't miss the school bus and things like that. And so they had various tactics that they had to resort to in order to make sure that I got out of the house on time. One of which was getting me to place my feet flat on the floor, because they thought, naively, I believe, that if my feet were on the floor and I were in an upright position, that I would not be able to fall back to sleep. And I put the lie to that theory very quickly by doing exactly that. So various other things are called for, but by the time I graduated, I still was lousy at it. And when I started, I was 22 years old, got a job at a car dealership. And I was originally a lot attendant, and I worked in the service department. So my job was when someone brought their car in for service, they would bring it into the service lane. The service writer would create a ticket, and then I would take the car and I would park it in the back lot so that the mechanic who was assigned to that ticket could go get it and bring it in the shop and fix it. And then when it was done, the customer would come back to pick it up. I would get the car from the back lot and I would drive it up and give it to them to take it. And so my schedule shifted depending on availability. And it was one of those jobs that, you know, it's not a career job. You know, it's a job you get and you do it for a year or 2 years to get a better job and you leave. I ended up being there for 4 years, and my schedule for a long time was 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. And I did not care for that whatsoever. It's very hard to be at work at 7 a.m. when you're clearing out the bar at 2 a.m. I can tell you that much. There were many nights where I got, you know, an hour, 2 hours of sleep, and then most of the time I made it, you know, like I said, I survived in that job for a few years, and I never got fired for being late. I was only late a couple of times. And it was one of those things where you might be able to get away with it, you know, because it was a, you know, it's a big place, so you could just sort of pop your head out the door 10 minutes after your shift starts. Oh, I've been here. I was working on this. But you get a time card, so your time card will give you away. So you might not hear about it in the moment. You might get that call to the manager's office at the end of the week. What happened on Wednesday? So I learned, you know, and it never got any easier. You know, my roommates were driven crazy by the sound of my alarm snoozing and snoozing and snoozing and snoozing and snoozing. I would have to set it for like an hour and a half before I had to leave because I was terrible at getting up. So fast forward to now, when I moved to mornings, I'd been on the night shift for close to 10 years. I mean, it was a good chunk of time, and the night shift was great for someone like me because I had to be at work at 5 p.m. So basically, I could go to bed whenever I wanted. I could get up without an alarm and still reasonably expect to get 8 hours of sleep. And it was fantastic, and I loved it. But moving to mornings was a great opportunity, and so I was eager to do it, even though I knew it's going to be a big challenge in getting. And then I actually started doing it, and I realized that if you're waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning, which I was to begin with, you're waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning, it's still the middle of the night, basically. And waking up in darkness was something that very much agreed to me. And so I really had no problem with that. And I found that it was not until I actually got here and I put a day's work in, you know what I mean, and got off the air and realized, okay, it's 10 o'clock in the morning, and I've done 2/3 of a workday, and I am absolutely exhausted. You go out, you go and this happens to me every single day after I get off the air. I go staggering out the door into the blindingly bright sunlight. Like, basically tricked my body into thinking that it's still night when I get here, and I'm still working at night. And then every day I'm shocked back to reality. Nope, it's the morning. But whatever it was, you know, it's working out because I feel like I've adjusted pretty well, and it's fortunate because I knew, like I said, I knew it could be kind of like culture shock. It could be a very difficult adjustment, and it turned out not to be. So, feeling pretty fortunate about that. Now, on my own time, it's a different story. Like on the weekends when I don't have anything to do, I'll still sleep till noon. I'll sleep till noon Saturday, sleep till noon on Sunday, and still go to bed at 8 p.m. and be up by 4 the next morning. Now, that's weird, but I've gotten used to it. I mean, when I was on the night shift, I got a lot of sleep. There were days when I would sleep 9-10 hours, which you do when you can. It's like, why do pets sleep all day? Because they can. Because they have that luxury. And it is a luxury. I find that when you're adjusting to a morning life, it seems like there's less time to do everything, even though there's still the same amount of time during the day, which is weird. I mentioned earlier when I was on the night shift that I had to be here at the radio station at 5 p.m. So in a way, my schedule is just sort of flip-flopped. Like, I got to be here at 5 a.m. now. And before I went on the air at 7 p.m. over on the Hayride, and now I'm on at 6 a.m., but not much else has really changed that way. And I guess it's kind of one of those things, as long as you're not focusing on, oh man, it's so early. It's just something you just kind of get into and do and get used to. And, in that respect, I guess it's good that I have the luxury of being able to figure out on my own how to do what it is I need to do. Like, I've had jobs where you ever see Office Space, the movie Office Space? You get the guy in the cubicle environment, and he's telling the consultant guys, I have 8 bosses. I have 8 people breathing down my neck. And I was in that position. I had a job where I was in a cubicle in an office in a giant building with 1,000 people, and I was very much micromanaged. No matter what I did during the day, somebody knew about it. And if I was not doing what I was supposed to do at the time I was supposed to be doing about it, more than one person usually would let me know about it. And if I happen to have a bowl of a bad batch of chili the night before and had to go to the bathroom once too often, I heard about it, and it was always bad. So having a job now where I'm basically told what needs to be done and then left to do it in whatever manner I see fit to do it is great. And I know not everyone has that luxury, and it's just like the schedule thing. I know, having been in the position where I had to drag myself out of bed at 6 o'clock in the morning to be in some office by 7 to do some job that I couldn't stand. I know the feeling of sitting in my car because I just can't bear to go in, because I just can't face it, and sitting there for 10 minutes and finally going in that door at the last minute. It's not something I've had to deal with a long time, so that's fortunate. And I often wonder, people who have jobs that they really just don't care for, how has quarantine treated you? If you've been placed in a position where you're telecommuting or you're working from home or whatever it is, does it make a difference? Is it easier to do a job that you dislike if you don't have to go to a place that you dislike in order to do it? I don't know. I may do that question on air at some point and get some other perspectives about it, but for me, I feel fortunate to be in a place where I'm surrounded by decent people that I get along well with, because it just makes the day-to-day that much more bearable, especially when I am getting up at 3:45 a.m. and walking in the door at 5 a.m. I mean, it's unusual, and I've done third shift before. I had a job at a place where my actual job was collating documents. It's funny because it's like, I mentioned the movie Office Space earlier. That's what Milton did. He collated documents. That was his job. And my job was, I went through loan packets, and I was given a list of documents, like a loan packet of 150 pages, and they need 17 pages pulled and attached. So I would go through those 150 pages, find the 17 pages, attach them, and send them down the line. That was my job. I did that from, if I remember correctly, 11 at night to 7 in the morning, something like that. But it was third shift, it was overnight. And I know the struggle is real, man. Like, I would go to lunch at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. 3 o'clock, I think it was 3 o'clock in the morning. Go to lunch, and where the office was, like, in this business park, and there was sheets at the entrance to the business park. So I would go to Sheets, and I would, get a sandwich and a bag of chips and slam a couple of Mountain Dews, just trying to get that caffeine jolt going on, because I've never really been a coffee drinker. I've always had a very heavy Mountain Dew habit. So I'd go and, slam a couple dews, and I'd bring another one back with me and get back to work at like 3:30 or whatever it was, and 10 minutes, and I'd finish the end of the last bottle of dew. Like, all right, well, that's not so bad. And look at the clock and realize it's only been 10 minutes. I still have like nearly 4 hours to go, and then you're banging your head on the desk. And I have not had that. There are days when I'm like keeling over exhausted, and it's only like 11 in the morning. But I know now, like, the bulk of my day is over at that point. So I can take a minute and do what I need to do. Sometimes I'll go outside and I'll walk around the outside of the building, just to get the blood flowing in the extremities, or I'll hop in the car and go out and pick up a bottle of Mountain Dew or whatever it is, and I have the freedom to do that. So that's good. It beats, sitting at a desk knowing I cannot leave for 3 hours, and it'll be a miracle if someone doesn't find me sitting in this chair passed out at some point. So, what often happens, though, in these podcasts is I'll start out with a point, and I'll pivot halfway through and wind up somewhere altogether different. I started out to talk about working in the early morning, and gotta say, man, I've known radio people at other stations, and even other people at here at Verstanding Media over the years who have done morning shows, and just told me, man, it will drain you till there's nothing left. And I gotta say, it's been almost a year, and I have not had that experience so far, and I'm hoping it stays that way. I feel like I've had a pretty good experience. Been treated pretty well for the most part by the audience, and been accepted, and it's still fun. That's probably the best thing I could say about what I'm doing right now. It's still fun, and I hope you're enjoying it. Now, if you've listened this far, and 20 minutes in for just a podcast, that's an eternity. Just a podcast. I know Crazy Bob with his podcasts are always an hour and change, and I don't know what he can talk about for an hour. I really don't. I get about 15 minutes down and I'm like, okay, so I guess we'll wrap up now. But thank you very much for sticking with me. I do appreciate it, and it's been fun talking with you, and be back and do this again in a few weeks. This has been Just a Podcast. My name is Just Bob. Have a good one.